Okay, welcome everyone to the first episode or the first lesson um, in the academic writing part of the course of the IELTS course. Before we start, we just need to talk about just for a minute to talk about the IELTS writing test. The writing part of the exam has two subtasks. The first one is to write a report based on some sort of visual data. It could be a graph, a diagram, a table. We will take a look at these kinds of visual data representations soon. It could be a pie chart, bar chart, a line graph, even a map, or an image that has maybe some steps to achieve a process or to do something. Okay. You have for task one, you have to write at least 150 words. For task two, the essay part of the exam, you should write at least 250 words. And in the essay, you could be talking about the advantages and disadvantages of something. You could write an argumentative essay or justify an opinion, okay? Maybe give a solution to a problem and so on. But I don't want you to worry at all. We will be talking about all these in the course. Task one and task two, we have 8 lessons about task one and 8 lessons about task two, because we have 16 writing lesson in the course. Okay, so the more you practice, of course, you will feel confident. And at first it might seem tedious or boring, but give yourself some time and practice, then practice, and then practice some more. Things will be fine. Okay, so let's begin. In today's lesson, we are going to be talking about task one. Okay, this thing about visual representation, visual data that you need to use to write a report. We will be talking about understanding graphs and charts in task one, describing data and numbers in task one, selecting the most important information for the report, understanding the language used in reports, what verbs you need to use, what about adjectives and adverbs. Before I ask you to write anything, I just need to prepare you first, okay? I need to tell you how to look at the visual data, maybe the line graph and the bar graph and so on, and understand how things work, okay? So let's begin the lesson. Just before we begin, for your homework, you need to type. Don't send your homework written on a sheet of paper, okay? You need to type on your computer. In case you don't have a computer, then you will use your phone, okay? But you need to type, don't write, okay? Diagrams. These are the kind of diagrams you will find in the exam. The first one is called a line graph, of course, because this is a graph and this is a line, okay? Something is increasing in this line, okay? We will be talking about that soon. 2 is called pie chart because it looks like a pie, okay? 3, it's called bar chart, okay? Not pie, bar chart, because this is a bar, okay? You have 6 bars, okay? 4, of course, it's our old friend, the table, okay? So nothing new here. The line graph and the table describe changes in numbers over time, okay? The line graph is describing a change of numbers, okay? We will talk about that soon, don't worry, okay? So these are 4 of the possible task 1 questions, okay? Here's another um, uh, representation. We have 4 diagrams or 3 diagrams on the table. Okay. This is a line graph because there is a line. Okay. Then 2, this is the line. So this is the line graph and this is the line, the one in blue. Okay. Then we have horizontal axis, 3. Okay. And the vertical one, this is 4, the vertical axis. Okay. Then 5 is the bar chart. This is the bar chart. Okay. Of course, this is the bar. Okay. And 7 is very important. It's called a key. Okay. This is how you are going to write your report. You are going to use the data, the visual data presented in the vertical and horizontal axis, or axes, okay, the plural. Then use the keys. We have 3 keys to write your report. Okay, we're going to talk about that. Then you have your title, number 8. Of course, the title is very important because I need to know the reason behind this visual representation. Okay, so favorite type of movie. So this is the title of this pie chart. I'm sorry. Okay, then we have we said that this is a pie chart. Okay, then we have this is called a segment. Number 10 is this part of the pie chart is called a segment. Okay, then we have the table, and of course it has columns and rows. Okay, so moving on. Before you start writing a report based on the visual data, you need to spend just 2 minutes selecting the main features of the report. The following questions will help you decide. So here you have some sort of visual representation. Okay, you need to spend just 2 minutes to choose key features. Why do I need to do that? Because when you write your report, you need to talk about the most or the key features, the most important features of the report, not the slight or very trivial changes. For example, let's assume that last year the interest rate at our biggest bank were 20%. Okay, so if you have 1 million pounds, after a year it will be 1.2 million. Okay, pounds. This year the interest rate has dropped by 12%, so it's 8%. So the interest rate last year was 20% and now it's 8%. Okay, so this is a key feature. I have to report that in my report. Okay, let's assume at the same task there is a trivial change, maybe something like prices increased by car prices increased by maybe 2,000 pounds. So a Mercedes cost maybe last year 1 million pound. Okay, then 1 million pounds. Then this year 1 million and only an increase by 2,000. Okay, would you report something like that? No, this is trivial. Okay, I need to report key features. Okay, so I need to spend maybe 2 minutes to understand what I'm writing before I start writing. Okay, this is very important. So let's have a look at this bar chart. Okay, and ask ourselves some questions. Think about the following questions. What does the title say the graph is about? We need to look at the title. The world's most expensive cities in the year 2015. Okay, so this is the title. How much can you buy for $1 million? Okay, what does the vertical axis describe? So this is the vertical axis. Okay, it describes the cost per square meter in US dollars. Okay, so this is the cost per square meter in US dollars, in American dollars. Okay, buying price US dollar per square meter. Okay, so it starts from 0 to 50. This is the vertical axis. Okay, what does the horizontal axis describe? The horizontal axis describes or represents different cities: Monaco, Hong Kong, London, New York, Singapore. So I have 5 cities. Okay, so now I started to get an idea of what I'm going to write about. I need to report what changed dramatically, okay, and maybe something else. We are going to talk about that soon. Okay, so let's continue with our questions. What do the bars represent? The bars themselves, what they represent? They represent, of course, they are vertical on the vertical axis, so they represent the cost per square meter in each city. So of course Singapore has the highest cost, almost 40%. And when I say almost 40%, as you can see, this is 40. But but Singapore, the bar right here of this city is almost 40%. $40. Okay, it could be 39. So I could say almost $40. Okay. Which is the tallest and shortest bar? The tallest is Singapore, and the shortest one is Monaco. So I need to report these changes or these numbers. Okay. How do the bars compare to one another? Monaco, Hong Kong, and London are very similar. Of course, they are almost similar, okay, or almost the same, but of course they are not the same. New York and Singapore are significantly more expensive. Okay, so the cost per square meter in US dollars in New York and Singapore is significantly more expensive. Okay, so this is what I need to start writing my report. Of course, I need to use the language itself, and we are going to talk about that in a minute. But now you have to take a look at this visual data and try to understand or ask yourself these questions first. Okay. Let's look at a line graph. We are not done yet. Okay. We have to understand that reporting key features is the reason behind writing a report in the first place. Okay. What does the title say the graph is about? Home ownership rates in selected European countries. Okay, so it's about home ownership rates. What does the vertical axis describe? This is the vertical axis. Percentage of people owning their homes. Okay, so this is 100%, which means everyone owns their homes or their home. Okay. What does the horizontal axis describe? The horizontal axis describes some European countries: Romania, Italy, UK, France, Germany, Switzerland. Okay. Okay. What do the highest, lowest points of the line show? So this is the highest point on the line graph, and this is the lowest point. This is what you need to report. Okay. The big differences. So Romania has maybe 100% or almost, it's not on the line, on the dot, no, almost 100% or 100% homeowners. Okay. But Switzerland has the lowest. Okay. What is the general trend of the line? What I mean by a trend is the way that something is happening. It's going up or down. Okay. That's what's the general trend of the line? It's going down, right? Most of the countries have similar ownership percentage except for Romania. Okay, as you can see, they are almost similar. Okay, except for Romania, and we could say it's Switzerland. Okay, because I could even say that it's almost similar in the UK and France, okay, and maybe Germany, okay, but it's very different for Romania, Italy, and Switzerland. This is what you are. This is the sort of data that you need to convert to text, okay, and describe it using examples. Then you will have your report. Are there any sharp decreases or increases? Yes, Romania has a much percentage of homeowners than the other countries. Okay, so Romania has almost 100%. So understanding your visual data is key to writing the report, because if you do not understand what you're writing or what you are looking at, you will not be able to write anything. Am I right? Okay. Now we have a pie chart, okay, which looks like a pie or a circle. What does the title say the graph is about? It's about average house size in selected countries. So we are talking about sizes, okay, average house size. What do the segments represent? These segments, they represent different countries, okay. Of course, these are your keys. You have 5 keys. Each one is colored differently. So this is Japan, Hong Kong, and so on. Which is the largest and smallest segment? Of course, Australia is the largest. Okay, so the average house size in Australia is 314 square meters, and the smallest is Hong Kong. Of course, this very tiny segment. Are some segments similar in size? Australia and the US. Okay, 214 and 201. Okay, so now I have something to write about. I will write about maybe after the introduction. Of course, we are going to talk about that in later on in this lesson. Maybe I will start with the biggest differences. Okay, so this is I will say that Australia has the highest average house size between the selected countries, and that the US is comes next. Okay, of course, this is not the report itself. You have to use different language, and the smallest segment here, the Hong Kong. So Hong Kong has the lowest or smallest average house size of only 45 meters. Okay, so this is Australia and the US has almost the same. Okay, and Hong Kong has the lowest. Okay, let's move on. Now we have a table. What does the title say about the table? Average house size in selected European countries. So now it's a table about average house size in selected European countries. How many columns are there? What they represent? Of course, we have 2 columns. It's only the country and the size. Okay, you could have a table with maybe 5 or 6 columns. Okay, which is a bit complicated. Anyway, which country has the biggest average house size? Denmark. Okay. Which country has the smallest average house size? Italy. So you have to report these pieces of information. Okay. Which countries have a similar average house size? You will also need to report the similarities. Okay. France and Germany. 112 and 109. Okay, so I will report. This is what I mean by choosing key features of the visual data. What's the biggest or largest? Okay, for example, in our table, the biggest average house size is Denmark. Okay, then the smallest is Italy, and Germany and France have similar average house size. Okay. Now let's move on to the language itself, the verbs, the adjectives, and the adverbs that you need to use to write your report, because so far we have done nothing except maybe trying to come up with the key features of the visual data. Okay, but now we need to sit in and start typing or writing. Okay, verbs and nouns used to describe changes in numbers and trends. If something is going up, okay, it's increasing, right? Increase, rise, growth, climb, go up, rocket, soar. Okay, soar means to quickly increase to a high level. So if you are describing something that's increasing, you can use these words. Okay, if you are describing the opposite, something is going down, you can say decline, drop, fall, decrease, go down, of course, plummet, which means suddenly becomes much lower, or plunge. Okay, if you are describing something that is unchanged, okay, you can say maintain or remain or stay. Okay, so you could say something like from 2014 to 2016, the prices of blah blah blah, maybe the prices of owned houses remain stable, something like that. Okay, so I'm describing something that hasn't changed over 2 years. Okay, now you have to use your dictionary to understand which of these words can be used as nouns and verbs and which can be used only as nouns. Okay, can you say an increase? Okay, can you say arise? Can you use growth as a verb or not? Okay, can you use a climb as a noun or only a verb, and so on. Okay, so you have to do that. You have to do that on your own, and please do it, because if you don't do it, you will make mistakes. Okay, of course, and you have to notice that there are some irregular verbs, like fall is irregular. Okay, it's fallen. So if you are going to use the present perfect simple, you will say the prices have fallen. Okay, of course, also rise is an irregular verb. It's very important that your report reflects the data represented in the chart or graph accurately. Also, you need to use the correct tense. This is very important, guys. You have to use the correct tense. Okay, if the table or the pie chart or whatever you get in the exam talks about something that happened from 24 to 2040. I'm sorry, 2014, an 11-year period. Okay, it happened in the past, so I have to use the past simple tense. The number of people smoking went down last year. Went down. I will not say go down. Okay, and I said last year, so I can't use the present perfect simple. Okay, we talked about that in the intermediate course, and of course most of you, if not all, are advanced users of the language. Okay, so you already know that. Okay, using the correct tense, here we have a table of 2 columns and 6 rows. Okay, new entrants to primary teacher training program 27 to present. Okay, but the table itself, the data, most of the data present something about the past. Okay, so from 2007 to 2015. Okay, the number of new entrants to primary teaching rose from 2007 to 2015. Rose, not has risen. Okay, there was a decline, so a decline can be used as a noun. Okay, there was a decline. There was a steady growth. Was. Okay, because it's about the past. It's something that happened in the past. It has no relation to the present time. Okay, look at the last one. The number have decreased again this year. The numbers have decreased. Have decreased because this year. Okay, We talked about this in the intermediate course. This year, it's still an incomplete period of time. Okay, it's not about the past. It has to do with the present time. We have used the adjective steady to describe the noun growth. Let's look at adjectives and adverbs. Of course, you are not going to, when you describe the key features of the visual data, you need to use verbs, but you will describe the nouns with adjectives and of course the verbs with adverbs. Okay, so let's talk about that. Using adjectives in reports. You can use many adjectives to describe the change that's happening or happened in the past, in the visual data, I mean, okay? To describe big changes, use adjectives such as significant, substantial, dramatic. There was a dramatic change from the year or maybe last year and so on, okay? So you would say a dramatic change, okay? To describe small changes, use adjectives such as modest or slight. There was a slight change in the number of homeowners during the period of 2015 to 2016 and so on. Okay, to describe that something has not changed, okay, or to describe a gradual change, use adjectives such as steady, stable, unchanged. Okay, let's see some examples. Over the last year, Hong Kong experienced a significant, or you could say a substantial or a dramatic rise in house prices. This is, I'm describing big changes, a big change, okay? There has been a gradual, steady increase in the number of young people buying houses. Some test takers confuse the word, I mean, they are confused about the meaning of the word gradual. Okay, we are going to talk about that. When I say that something is changing gradually over maybe 10 years, then it could be increasing or decreasing by maybe 1%, 2%, 5%, 20%, and so on. But the change from one year to the next is stable. So it's a gradual change. Okay, it didn't change 1 year by 20%, then by 2%, then 2%. No. Okay, it's a gradual change. 3, the rental market has seen a slight modest decrease over the past 6 months. Here, I didn't use the past simple. I said the rental market has seen, okay, over the past 6 months, because it's related to the present time, okay? So it has an effect in the present, okay? The graph illustrates that the rental market is unchanged, stable at the moment. So this is describing no change. So the rental market is unchanged or stable. Okay, so to describe a small change, use slight or modest. Okay, to describe gradual change, you can use, of course, gradual or steady. Okay, to describe big changes, you can use significant, dramatic, substantial. Of course, there are many other adjectives. Okay, using adverbs in reports. Now we need to use adverbs. Okay, you can use many adverbs to modify the verb that's used to mark the change that's happening or happened in the past. To describe big changes, use adverbs such as significantly, substantially, dramatically, considerably. Okay, of course you will use these adverbs with verbs. Okay, it increased significantly. Okay, you are describing that something has increased in a big way, okay, during a period of time. To describe small changes, use adverbs such as moderately, or slightly. Okay, there was a slight change. Okay, no, I'm not using an adjective. I could say it increased slightly last year. Okay, to describe gradual change, use adverbs such as steadily, slowly, gradually, consistently. This is a gradual change. Also, you can describe quick change. A quick change, use adverbs such as quickly, sharply, rapidly. Okay, something that changed quickly, sharply. Okay, let's see some examples. Home ownership has decreased dramatically over the last 5 years. Has decreased dramatically. So I'm talking about big changes, a big change. The property market is growing gradually in this area. So this is a gradual change. Property prices have increased slightly over the last 6 months. Describing a small change. I said have increased slightly. So there was a slight increase, okay? So I'm describing a small change. Interest rates have increased rapidly recently. So I'm describing a quick change, okay? Visual, let's take a visual example, okay? As you can see, we have 3 line graphs, okay? Let's talk about the first example. In 2015, home prices rose slightly. I want you to study, I want you to focus on this graph, number A, okay? It's presented with the letter A. I'm talking about in 2015. I'm talking about this year, okay, on the vertical axis. In 2015, home prices rose slightly, but someone might ask or say, I'm not seeing it, okay? I don't see a slight change, okay? I see a big change. Okay, let's suppose that the vertical line is in millions, okay? So in 2014, maybe the average home price was £1 million, okay? £1 million. So in 2015, it was maybe around a bit less than 1.5 million, okay? I'm talking about the increase, okay, in this year from 2015 to 2016, okay? Because all this is 2015, okay? So it rose maybe to, I'm sorry, here in 2015, it was maybe 1.2, it rose to, or 1.3, okay? It rose to 1.5. Can you say that this was a big change? No, it was a slight change, okay? This was a slight change and it was not sudden, okay? So it during the 12 months period, okay, it rose from 1 point maybe 2, okay, to 1.5, okay. In 2014, home prices rose gradually. Okay, this is what we describe as a gradual change. Okay, because in a 12 months period, okay, the prices increased gradually. Okay, maybe by something like maybe 150,000 every month. Okay, so it was a gradual change. Okay, in 2014, home prices rose significantly. This is a significant change because it rose from maybe or exactly 1 million pound to a solid 5 million pound. Okay, 5 million pounds. So it rose significantly. So this is what we describe as a significant change. Okay, I hope it's now clear to you what is what the meaning of slightly, gradually, and significantly. Okay, let's now move to the next slide. You can lose marks if you use the wrong preposition for the sentence. This is very important. you have to understand how to use prepositions in reporting. 20% of the population are graduates. So 20% of the population. The number of graduates went up last year. The number of it rose from 14% to 20%. So from something to something else. Okay. The number increased by about 6%. Between 2020 and 2021, there was an increase. Between, okay. So of, from, to, by, between. So each time you read a report, try to notice how the writer used prepositions to describe percentages, okay? Describe the data. So now we got a general idea of how it works. I mean, the visual data. And we talked about some of the language we can use to write the report. Now we need to know what we are going to write. We need to describe the data. You need to write a report that describes the data, not just listing percentages of changes in numbers. I know this is better explained with an example, okay? This is a line graph of the percentage of graduates in the population in the UK. So this is a line graph. I want you to pause the video and read these two descriptions, and I want you to tell me or figure out which one is better, okay? Is it the first one or the second one? Okay, so let's read the first one. The graph shows the percentage of graduates in the UK population between 1990 and 2015. Okay, so far so good. In 1990, 17% of the population of the UK were graduates. This rose to 20% in 1995 and 24% in 2000. In 2005, it went up to 29%. In 2010, it rose to 34% and up to 38% in 2015. So far, so good. I like it. Okay, let's read the second one. The graph shows an upward trend in the percentage of graduates in the population between 1990 and 2015. Okay. I think this one is better already, okay, because I'm describing the process. I'm not the process, I mean the visual representation, the visual data. The graph shows an upward trend in the percentage of graduates in the population between 1980 and 2015. So actually, this is true. The graph illustrates or demonstrates or shows an upward trend, because the trend is going up. It's called an upward trend. And this trend is in the percentage of graduates in the population of UK between the period of 1990 and 2015. Okay. The percentage rose gradually throughout the period. Oh, I love this one, because this is what actually happened. It rose gradually during the period, throughout the period. Gradually. It was a gradual increase. In 1990, it was maybe this is 15, this is 15, and this is 20. So it was about 17%. Okay. Then in 1995, it rose by 3%, then 5, then 5 or 4, then 5, then 5. So it was a gradual increase. Okay. It increased by about 3 to 5% every year, every 5 years, because every 5 years. So it was a gradual increase. For example, between 1990 and 1995, it increased from 17 to 20%. So, of course, this description is much better because it describes what's going on with this line graph, okay, what it represents, and it also used an example, okay. It says here, for example, and this is a compound sentence, okay. We used, for example, a semicolon, then for example, then comma. We talked about that in the intermediate course, of course. Between 1990 and 1995, it increased from 17 to 20%. Okay, it gives you an example from the visual data. Okay, so this one is better because it describes the data. The first one, not so much, because it doesn't describe actually anything. It just give you numbers. Okay, numbers. In 1990, 17% of the population of the UK were graduates. Okay, good. I can already see that from the line graph. Okay, this rose to 20% in 1995 and 24% in 2000. Okay, it's almost 24%. Yeah. Um, in 2005, it went up to 29%. In 2010, it rose to 34% and up to 38% in 2015. It just gives you the numbers. Okay, this paragraph or this description of the line graph just gives you the numbers. Okay, nothing more. But the second one, it describes what's happening. Okay, it used the percentage rose gradually throughout the period, rose gradually, increased. It increased by about 3 to 5% every 5 years. Okay, so it's describing what's happening. Okay, so this is much better. Always support your description of the data with an example. Don't talk about your opinion, just report. You can't say, for example, you can't write a sentence that says it's the same in my country. It has nothing to do with the visual data at all. Okay, so don't use these expressions or sentences. Okay, don't talk about your personal opinion. This is not the essay. Okay, it's a report. You are reporting data. Okay. Okay, describing the data. I want you to look at this bar chart. Okay, and I want you to think about the key features. Okay, it's the title says participation of 18-year-olds in education and training in 2014. Okay, so this is the data. This is the title. I mean, I'm sorry. You have the vertical axis and the horizontal axis. Okay, the horizontal axis, of course, represents the number of students. Okay, or people. Okay, in this age, 18 years old, 18-year-olds. This is a compound noun. I'm sorry, and the vertical axis represents different categories. Okay, full-time education, work-based learning, employer-funded training, and so on. Okay, so I want you to think about how you can describe the data. Okay, there were about 330,000 18-year-olds in full-time education. Okay, this is the number. Okay, but how you can describe the data? There were 3 times more 18-year-olds in full-time education than in employment. Yeah, of course, it's in employment there was about 100,000. Okay, but in full-time education there was over 330,000. Okay, so this is a key feature. I need to describe this data. Can you use the adjectives and adverbs that we talked about? Maybe a significant increase. Okay, maybe is it a slight increase? No. Okay, it's a dramatic increase or growth, a dramatic growth. Okay, 3, about 90%, 90,000 were not in employment, education, or training. More 18-year-olds were in employment than not in employment, education, or training. Okay, work-based learning is really important for young people. What is that? Okay, this sentence has nothing to do with the visual data. Okay, this is your opinion. Okay, work-based learning is really important for young people. This is a big mistake. Don't do that. Don't ever do that. Okay, around 70%. I'm sorry, around 70,000 of the age group were involved in work-based learning, and about 60,000 in other education and training. I want you to describe the the most important features. So you locate or find the key features, okay, which is probably statement 1, 2, 3, okay, and 4, okay. It's a matter of opinion, okay, but these are the most important key features, okay. Then you use the adjectives and the verbs, adjectives and adverbs to describe the data, what's going on, okay. Okay, let's look at this one. This is another line graph. The title says average house prices in London from 2008 to 2015. Okay, now I'm going to describe the line graph. Okay, and the vertical line is pounds. Okay, 100,000 to 900,000. Okay, so since 2010, oh, this is 2010. Okay, house prices in London have increased steadily, of course, or gradually. I could say gradually because it's increased gradually. In 2009, prices decreased significantly by almost £100,000, but went up again rapidly in 2010 to approximately £600,000. Okay, so of course, someone would say this is not significant. I don't see the line going down much, Michael. Okay, but you have to look at the vertical axis. Okay, each slight change could be a significant decrease. Okay, so in 2009, prices, okay, decreased significantly by almost £100,000, because in 2008 it was £600,000. Then it's almost in 2009 it's almost 500,000. So this is a big decrease. Okay, so prices decreased significantly. Okay, but went up again rapidly in 2010. Okay, so I'm describing the data. Okay, because I said the house prices in London have increased steadily, so I'm describing the data. Okay, I could say that in 2009 it was almost 500,000, and then in 2010 it was almost 600,000. Then in 2011 it was about 700,000. This is not reporting the data. This is just giving numbers. I want you to describe the data. Okay. Okay. Let's look at this one. House prices change in Dubai. Okay. This is a new one for us. Okay. This is the horizontal bar axis. Okay. Also in years. And then this is not, this is a percentage. Okay. And it can be different, this one. Okay. During the period from 2008 to 2009, house prices in Dubai have fluctuated heavily. Okay, so I have used the adverb heavily with the verb have fluctuated, because this year it went crazy down. Okay, it was 40%, then it went down to minus 43%. Okay, so I have to describe. I don't want to just use the numbers. No, I want to describe. So I will say have fluctuated heavily. Okay, in 2008, prices went up by just over 40%, and then plummeted dramatically to about minus 43%. Okay, so this is describing your data. Okay, you could say that there was a slight increase in between what actually a slight decrease or decline between 2011 and 2012. Okay. Okay, let's look at the next one. This is our first task, one example. Okay. This is a bar chart. Okay, and this is your question. As you can see, we have two keys, and keys are very important because sometimes you will understand, you will know how many paragraphs you are going to write using these keys. Okay. The chart gives information about how people aged 25 to 34 are housed in the UK. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting on the main features and make comparisons where relevant. Write at least 150 words. Okay, so this is a very easy one. Okay. Steps to approach the task. First, you need to identify and underline the key words. Actually, these should be two words: key words, not keywords. Okay, and the question: people aged 25 to 34, housed. Summarize main features and make comparisons. These could be your keywords. 2, look at the keys and the vertical and horizontal axis. Okay, you need to look at the title too. The keys and the horizontal and the vertical axes. Okay. Ask the questions. Take 2 minutes looking at the chart. These are the questions. You can come up with totally different questions. It's fine. What do the keys represent? Homeowners and renters in the UK. Okay. Let's go back. Homeowners, as you can see, and home renters. The green. Okay. So the blue is homeowners, and the green bar represents, or the green bars represent, renters. What does the vertical axis represent? Percentage of owners and renters. Okay, so let's go back. The vertical axis, it's about the percentage, okay, of homeowners and renters. Okay, I'm sorry. What does the horizontal axis represent? A period of 11 years from 20, I forgot, sorry, from 2004 to 2014. Okay, so this is the horizontal axis. What does, okay, we're done with this one. When did the most significant change happen? It was a gradual decrease in home owners over the period of 11 years. Okay, as you can see, let's go back. You need to find or locate the key features that you will use to report, to write your report. Okay, so let's go back to the steps. Okay, use the keys to decide how many. Oh, I'm sorry, 4. You must write an introduction. Usually it's the question rewritten in your own words with a quick overview of the chart's data. Okay, so you must write an introduction. You have to say what will be in the report, what you will be going to write in the report. Okay, then 5, use the keys to decide how many paragraphs you are going to write. So 2 keys, we have 2 keys, so 2 paragraphs. Don't forget to write a conclusion. You have to write a conclusion. Don't talk about your personal opinion. Okay, you can write, you can just summarize the actual change. Okay, so let's see this in action. This is our report. Okay, and of course, in your homework, you are going to write something similar. Okay, so you have to study this one very carefully and closely. Okay. The bar chart shows how many people aged 25. I'm sorry, this many is a mistake here. How people aged 25 to 34 either rent or bought a house in the UK. Of course, I used shows because this is a fact, present simple, but I said rent or bought. Okay. Here I should have said rented or bought a house in the UK. So I should have used the past simple. Furthermore, it illustrates how this changed over an 11-year period. So this is your introduction. Okay, the introduction is about the report in general. Okay, you can use, some people just use the words in the question, they rewrite it. Okay, they use they write the question words but in their own words. Okay, so the question says, the chart gives information about how people aged 25 to 34 are housed in the UK. So you could say the bar chart shows how, we said many is a mistake. Okay, you can omit it. People aged 25 to 34 either rented or bought a house, rented in the past form, okay, not rent, in the UK. Furthermore, it illustrates how this changed over an 11-year period. Okay, so I'm going to be talking about that change. This is the reason behind writing the report. I'm going to be telling the people about the change. Okay, the number of homeowners. So as you can see, we have paragraph 1. Okay, after an introduction, it's about the first key, homeowners. Then paragraph 2 about the second key. Okay, it's just one way to write it. Okay, you could use different methods, as we can see in the other, in the rest of the course, of course. And you end your task with the conclusion. So let's first read the first paragraph. The number of homeowners within this age group has decreased substantially since 2004. Has decreased, okay, substantially since 2004. Since this is happening in the past, I could have said decreased. I could have used the simple past tense. Okay, in 2004, nearly 60% owned their own homes, whereas in 2014 this dropped to under 40%. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to report is the biggest or largest or the most obvious thing first. Okay, so in 2004, the percentages of homeowners were at almost 60%. Okay, nearly 60% owned their own homes. Okay, whereas in 2014, this is the change. This dropped to under 40%. There was a gradual, this I'm describing the data. Okay, there was a gradual decrease in home ownership over the 11-year period. So as you can see, there was a gradual decrease in home ownership. Okay, as you can see, it's a gradual decrease. It's not sharp. Okay, it's a gradual decrease. Okay, so I'm describing the data. Okay, which was more significant from 2009 to 2014. So this is further describing the data. Okay, the decrease was significant from 2009. As you can see, it was maybe 53%. To 2014, it went to maybe 35% or so. Okay, only in 2011 and 2012 did the number stay stable at just over 40%. As you can see, this is a very important sentence. As you can see, in 2011 and 2012, the numbers of both homeowners and renters, by the way, are the same. They were stable. They didn't change. There wasn't any gradual increase or decrease or whatever. Okay, they were the same, stable. So I started the sentence with only in 2011 and 2012 did the number. Okay, as you know, we start the sentence with the subject, then the verb. Okay, but I started with only. Okay, so I used something called inversion. Okay, it's like in question, When you write a question, you start with the verb, then the subject. And when you answer the question, okay, in an ordinary sentence, you start with the subject, then the verb. So only, you can think of only as it has the same structure as a question. Okay, you start with the verb, then the subject. Okay, you say only did the number, not the number did. Okay. So this was the first paragraph. Let's move on to the second one about renters. The rental market. Oh, now I didn't say, I used a synonym to the word renters. Okay, you should not be using the same words. Okay, if you are aiming a high score, a high score in the writing task, don't use the same words. Try to use paraphrasing, as we said in the reading part. Okay. The rental market, however, has increased dramatically over the same period. I could use the simple, the past simple, and use increased dramatically. I would not say has. Anyway, from 2004 to 2014, the number of people renting rose by nearly 30%. Okay, so it was 20%, and now it's almost 50%. By the way, I said almost because it's not 50%. Okay, so I said nearly 30%. Nearly, because this isn't 50%. Okay, this is 20. That's correct. Okay, this is correct, but this isn't 50%. It's maybe 47% or so. Okay, so nearly 30%. Again, this was this was a gradual increase in most years. Okay, the increase in renters and the renter was gradual in most years, because in 2011 and 2012 it wasn't gradual, it stayed the same. So I said in most years. Okay, rising by 3 to 5% every year. Only in the same sentence as before, only in 2011 and 2012 where the number where the numbers okay, only in 2011 and 2012 where the numbers, I should say the numbers, not the number, unchanged. Okay, because they were stable. So I said unchanged, but in the first sentence I said stay stable. Okay, unchanged is an adjective, so I use the word were. Okay, but in the other sentence, only in 2011 and 2012 did the number stay stable. Okay. In 2014, the rental market reached a peak at just under 50%. Okay, so you are reporting the key features. One paragraph for homeowners, you're describing what's happening. Okay, using this visual representation, this bar graph. Okay, and you wrote another paragraph, the second one about renters. Okay, now you are writing your conclusion. In conclusion, or to sum up, it's obvious from this visual data that for the age group, now I said age group, okay, because in the first sentence I said people aged 25 to 34. Okay, so I changed it a bit. Okay, I made some changes. Okay, the rental market was increasing each year while the buyer's market is decreasing. So the rental market, okay. Then I said, I didn't say homeowners, I said buyer's market, because when you own a home, you buy it. Okay, so there's a market for buyers. Okay, so this is the conclusion. Okay, this was just an introduction. Okay, we haven't even started yet, honestly. See you next lesson, and I hope you have found this lesson useful, okay, and educational. I'll see you soon in the second, actually in the first lesson about speaking and listening, inshallah. See you soon. Bye-bye.